telescope. That word escaped me for just a second.
Think of like Pirates of the Caribbean, the movies, right?
Oh.
They pull out that
Land
scope
ho!
thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's
Great.
probably it. Clearly, I'm a historian and know all of these things so well.
Absolutely. Yeah, me too.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm a science teacher.
I'm Cheryl, and I slept through science.
Each episode will tackle a science question you may have learned in school, but can't quite remember or fully explain.
And I'll take the risk of asking the dumb questions so that we can all understand the science we slept through.
The bell has rung. Let's get started. Welcome to lesson 66. We are still in our Quackery unit. And Cheryl, I don't know about you, but I'm actually really excited to talk about the topic that we have today.
Oh my gosh, Ryan, I'm pretty sure this topic is the reason we're doing this unit.
I think you're right. I think this was the first one that we thought of.
Yes. We're like, let's have a science podcast and we better talk about flat earthers.
Oh my gosh. Flat Earth. Yes. Flat Earth. Let's just start off, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Is the Earth flat?
No.
No, it is not. We're just going to put that out there from the beginning. No, it is not.
There are some of these quackery topics where we've been pretty respectful because, like we've said in past ones, I don't know, seems like you could believe in it for other reasons than science, or like, okay, you could still be like a pretty reasonable person who maybe just didn't do some learning on water or whatever. But no, we will not have such grace in today's episode.
Okay. To get started with the pre-assessment, why don't we start and figure out what do you know about what Flat Earth believes? Flat Earthers, what do they believe?
Well, Ryan, they believe that the Earth is flat as opposed to a sphere.
Okay, that's a good place to start.
Yeah. For some reason, there are a number of other beliefs that go along with it. A lot of them are conspiracy theories. I mean, obviously, even believing that the Earth is flat is a conspiracy theory because
100% it is.
We're being taught a fact that it's round. And so even that is like, okay, so then we're being lied to. It sounds like there's a couple different like factions within flat earthers. So some think it has to do with the government, some think it's faith-based or like other reasons.
Some think it's aliens.
Yeah, I've heard the alien thing too, that we're under some big bubble or something and there's some alien thing going on. But it seems like the commonality is that it's somewhat of a circular map, right? I don't think it's a perfect circle or anything. And that Antarctica is the outside, like the perimeter of it. And that it's a giant ice wall. So that's why you haven't gone further than that or fallen off the edge is because it's an ice wall.
The Great Ice Wall. And then what's at the center?
Would that be the North Pole then?
Yep.
I would assume.
The North Pole.
Okay.
Yep. The North Pole is at the center.
And then I've heard bits and pieces of like, well then, if something like an airplane is flying in the sky and eventually you can't see it, and we would say that's because like of the curve of the Earth, that it's gone beyond that point where you can see. And I think the response is just like, well, it's so far away that you can't see it. It's just too far away.
Yes, that is definitely one of those responses. Yeah.
I think this also goes along with not believing in the moon landing.
Oh, yeah.
Or any kind of space travel.
Correct. Because what do they believe about the moon and the sun?
Well, don't they believe like it's not real?
Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by real.
Okay. I mean, I don't think they think that we like go around the sun.
No, definitely not.
We're flat.
Right.
Yeah.
No, they believe, and there is, again, some variation depending on which faction, but in general, it's believed that there is some sort of track along the top of the dome. Most flat earthers believe that we are underneath a dome of some kind, although not all of them do. But there's some sort of track or something along the top, and that's what the moon and the sun are moving around on. There's some sort of projection or some actual physical object that produces light that is moving around. Think of like a spotlight or a big giant flashlight
Okay.
kind of moves around, and the stars as well. All of yeah.
So like a Disneyland ride.
Maybe. What kind of Disneyland ride are you thinking of?
I don't know. I'm just thinking like you go indoors and it looks like the night sky, but it's just like it's
Oh,
not really the
sure. Kind
night
of like
sky. Pirates of
Pirates
the
of the
Caribbean.
Caribbean. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or The Truman Show. Did you ever see The Truman Show in the 90s?
Oh, I love that movie so much. I want a modern day version because it would be so good if they used like modern technology with it and everything. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. But that's the
Kind of
idea
what
that that's
Westworld
what,
is, I guess. But yeah.
yeah, but that's sort of what they think is happening. So in that sense, is the
Yeah.
sun or the moon real? Yes. But are they real in the sense that it's actually a star or
Yeah.
an actual physical moon? No. So of course they don't believe that we landed on the moon or that we've been to the moon.
Yeah.
Because you can never get there
Mm-hmm.
because it's in the dome.
Interesting. So do you think flat earthers ever travel by air?
Yes, they definitely do. They
So then
fly
what do
in
they
planes.
say
What do
about
you mean?
that?
What do they say?
Well, you can see the curve of the earth.
Can you though?
I think, can't you? Oh gosh. Are you being one of them right now, or
I'm not. I'm actually asking you legitimately. Like, have you seen the curvature of the Earth out of an airplane window? Because I don't think I have. I don't think you're high enough. I could be wrong,
maybe not.
but I
In
can
my
tell you their
memory.
answer.
Okay. Yes. What's the
But I
answer?
can tell you the answer that they say.
Yeah.
The plexiglass that makes up the windows is bent, and so it
Oh, like a fisheye
curves.
lens.
Yep. So it curves it, so it makes it look like it's curved, even
Is
though
that-
it's not curved.
Is that intentional design to support the
Yes.
conspiracy?
Yes.
Okay.
See, you're getting the hang of it here. You're getting
Great.
the
I
hang
have
of
some
it here.
friends who work at Boeing, so I will bring that up with them. Be like, listen.
Well, but they won't be able to tell you because they are part of the conspiracy.
Wow, I didn't know they were lying to me. Oh goodness.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, no, I think actually most flat earthers would probably say that they don't know. They believe it too. It's only the people at the higher echelons that actually know the truth and are hiding it from the masses.
Interesting.
Yeah. But your, daily workers and things generally don't.
Interesting.
Yeah. My next sort of line of reasoning here, if you feel like we've got a good description of kind of what flat earth is.
Yeah.
How do you know that flat earth is not true? What evidence would you provide, Cheryl, that would convince you that the earth is not flat and it in fact is spherical?
Oh my gosh. Here's the hard thing is I feel like if you were a flat earther, I could present you with whatever evidence I wanted and you would say, yeah, but that's what someone else told you. Because I have not been to space, Ryan. I don't know if you know this about me that I haven't been to space.
Well, it's one of the things that I'm really disappointed in you about. So you haven't been to space yet?
You would be so jealous if I had. So
but
like,
is that one of the things you're saying is something about being in space?
Well, like other people have gone to space and documented it. We have photos, but then like I'm assuming the response would be like, yes, but any photographic evidences could be like photoshopped or on a sound stage or anything like that. But if I trust those people and I trust those photos, then that alone is enough,
For you.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean also like if we again it's so hard because if you don't trust anybody and you don't trust anything anyone says, then like I could just not have trusted you for this whole podcast and been like, none of that is science because you just said words at me.
Right.
But if we decide that the sun is in fact a star and also round, then I think it provides so much light that it does actually need to set and more actually it's more that we're rotating or whatever. But like if it were just further away, we would still see the sunlight
Mm.
because of how much light is being provided by the sun and how powerful that is.
Mm-hmm.
Because planets even beyond us can see the sunlight. And so
Mm-hmm.
the only way it's dark enough at nighttime is because we're not even facing the sun, which means we have more than one side on our
Mm-hmm.
planet.
Okay.
And when something goes really far away, we don't see it anymore because it goes past the curve of the Earth, not because it's just really far away. Because then couldn't you just get a telescope and see anything ever? And like
Hmm.
see the sun way off in the distance that somehow is not shining on our section of our little flat Earth right now? Or see those airplanes that flew away, or see anything else. Like we have telescopes powerful enough that you should be able to see everything. Or if you go
Like,
up high, you should be able to see like other cities or
mm-hmm.
anything you want.
The
Even if
ice wall.
you should be able to see the ice wall if you had a really good telescope.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or if you were up in an airplane, even if your window is curved, you could bring a telescope up there and have such a great viewpoint from up high to
Mm-hmm.
see every single little thing on that flat Earth map.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else that you can think of that would be evidence for the Earth not being flat?
Wind, weather in general.
Why?
How is weather being generated if we're under a bubble? I mean, the weather's happening because like the Earth is turning and of the sun's effect. Like, I mean, I apparently we need a weather unit because I can't tell you,
Apparently.
but I know that like weather's impacted by all these things that the Earth is doing. The
Mm.
fact that it's spinning, the fact that we have day and night, and we have winter, and like we have these different seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of these things impact weather immensely.
Mm-hmm.
And if we didn't have those elements at play, then weather would look really different.
Yeah, that's very true.
Do they have big fans? I'm trying to figure out how to make weather happen. How do you make snow happen in a bubble?
Well, I mean, they believe clouds are real.
Sure, but like who made the clouds then? Depends on which
Well, they don't know who
faction.
made anything.
Okay, just that it's a conspiracy.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's why we don't know, is because it's a conspiracy. They're not telling us.
Hmm.
Or maybe they don't even know, because maybe we're trapped inside and we don't know how to get out.
Oh gosh. That's infuriating.
Being trapped inside.
No, just being like none of this is true. You know, none of anything you're
Mm-hmm.
told is true. That's very frustrating. At some point you have to believe
Yeah.
somebody, unless you're a conspiracy
Yes.
theorist.
Well, and what flat earthers will say is they will only believe things that they can see with their own eyes.
Let's get them up into space then. Let's do it. Flat
Well,
Earth
there was
trip.
the one guy who built his own rocket. Did you hear about that?
Kind
The
of,
flat
but I
earther
didn't hear
that
the
built his own
result.
rocket. It didn't go well.
Yeah, because he built his own rocket.
Mm-hmm.
Who will fund? It's because they're not destructive enough that someone needs to fund their trip to the moon. But that'd be pretty funny.
Yeah. All right, Cheryl, we're going to do a little bit of a history lesson for
Okay.
you here to talk about how do we know that the Earth isn't flat? Because believe it or not, we've known that for thousands of years.
Okay, I heard this recently that actually that like quote unquote common belief that the earth was flat was more like a subgroup of people and not the whole world.
Yes, it also depends on when you're talking about in history. But
Was
if
it
we,
Galileo?
so Galileo was part of that. Yep.
Okay.
We can start with Galileo. Do you know what Galileo is? He's actually famous for a lot of things, but in this context, do you know what Galileo's famous for?
And he was an astronomer who proved that
Mm-hmm.
the earth was round. Right? Did he have anything to do with
Ye-
gravity as well? Was it a
he
different
did some
person?
things with gravity.
Okay.
He did do some stuff with gravity. He dropped stuff off the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Yep. That's
Hmm.
why it's leaning. Just kidding. That's not true.
That's
Um.
not why it's leaning, but sure. But what Galileo did is he's the first person that we know of to use a telescope to look at objects in space. He didn't
Mm.
invent the telescope. It existed before he was around, but he built his own and then used it to look at objects in space. And specifically, he looked at the planet Jupiter. And one of the things that he observed was Jupiter's moons. And he was able to see moons of another planet for the first time. And he tracked
Oh.
them and noticed that they went around Jupiter. Not that you could see it, but if you track where they are from night to night and hour to hour, you can see that sometimes you can see them in front of Jupiter and then sometimes you don't. And they disappear.
Yeah.
And it's because it's going behind. And what that showed was that there are objects that go around something that isn't the Earth. And that was
Mm.
evidence that the Earth was not the center of the solar system. Because prior to that,
Wow.
we assumed everything went around the Earth. Now, whether or not
That's
the Earth was
right.
round or not, and actually
Yes.
they kind of knew that the Earth was round already at that point, but they
Yeah.
thought that it was called the geocentric model, that the Earth was in the center of the solar system. And we know that that's not true. We know that it's the sun, but Galileo was the first one to gather evidence that supported that idea because he showed not everything in the solar system goes around the Earth. And if you have some things that go around another object, then you can make the argument that there are other things that maybe don't go around the Earth as well. And maybe the
Mm.
Earth, maybe everything doesn't go around the Earth. So,
That's
but
so
Galileo knew.
special. That must have been
Yeah,
so exciting for him.
I can't even imagine. And side note, this has nothing to do with flat Earth, but I think he was the first person to see Saturn's rings
Oh my gosh.
because he looked at Saturn through a telescope for the first time. How amazing must that have
Oh
been?
my gosh. But then he had to convince
So cool.
people, and that must have been infuriating too.
Well, yes, not a lot of people wanted to believe him about a lot of things. But as far as just seeing the rings, all you got to do is look. You just look through the telescope and you can see
Yeah.
it. So that's one. Also, there was an ancient Greek, Eratosthenes. Have you heard of him?
No, not Aristotle.
Not Aristotle. That
Different
one's different.
era guy.
Yes. Well, and this one starts with an E, not an
Okay.
A.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
This one actually measured the circumference of the Earth.
How?
Okay. Here's what he did. He went to two different places in Africa, Egypt, so Alexandria, and
Okay.
then he walked however far down to Syene, and there were two different wells. And at the same day, well, he had somebody else go down there, but at the same day, looked and measured the shadow cast down a well by a post. And in one spot, there was no shadow. And at the other spot, there was a partial shadow because it was far enough up the curvature of the earth that the angle from the sun was different. In one spot, the sun was directly overhead, and the other spot, it was not. And then he knew the distance between those two spots and used just some trigonometry and some geometry to then estimate the circumference of the entire earth. And he got within like less than 5% of what the actual circumference of the earth is.
That is so smart. That was not one of my ideas.
No, it would not have been one of my ideas either. But I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like, we've got evidence from
Yes.
long time ago that the earth is round. This is not a new idea that the earth is round.
Yeah.
That's thousands of years ago. And then Galileo was building off of that. And then, have you ever seen a lunar eclipse before?
Maybe.
That's
don't
when the moon
remember.
turns red.
I think so. It sounds familiar.
Okay. Lunar eclipses are very cool. I've seen many. And when that happens, you can actually watch the moon over time, or you can watch the shadow of the earth on the moon. As a matter of fact, now that I think about it, I have pictures. Do you want to see pictures?
Yes, 100%. Share that screen. And for those of our listeners who are just listening to our podcast, if you want, you can hop on over to our YouTube so that you can see Ryan try to figure out the right buttons to push to share his screen and eventually show me a picture of a lunar eclipse. These are your pictures?
These are my pictures. Yeah, I took these with my phone, but through a telescope. So I put my phone up to a telescope. And I'll kind of, you've got sort of a big idea of it here, but I'll kind of zoom in and then we'll kind of cycle through. And I think
That
technically
looks
I'm
like
going
the
backwards.
moon. Ooh, that one is real clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you look here in the picture, sort of on the top left edge, you'll see it starts to be a little bit more shadowy. Do you see that? And that shadow has a little bit of a curve to it. Do you see that as well?
Yeah.
That's because there, you can really see it there.
Oh my gosh.
That's because the Earth is round. You can actually see the curvature of the Earth on the moon during a lunar eclipse. Now, this is before it's reached full eclipse. And eventually you get to a spot where it starts to look like a crescent moon. But even that, that's not the right shape for a crescent moon. I don't know if you can tell or not.
No.
And then, of course, it gets really cool and it starts to turn this orangey red color. Oh, there's the telescope that I was using.
Oh, cool.
But that's just with my phone without the telescope, but it looks way better.
Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful.
It's very cool. Anyway, we don't need to look at all of those pictures. And if you want to talk about eclipses sometime, we can go more into detail of those in a future lesson.
Yes.
But you can see the actual curvature. Now, if the Earth was a disc, like a flat disc, think of like a dinner plate or a Frisbee, right? Yeah. Then you might get a curve sometimes, but you wouldn't get it all the time. Sometimes you'd get a straight line. It just depends on its orientation.
But also, if the Earth was flat, then we wouldn't have eclipses because nothing would go on the bottom side of it, right?
Right. If the Earth, if the sun and the moon were both along the top, then that wouldn't actually do anything either. Yes, there's so many reasons. But you can actually see the curvature, literally the curvature of the Earth in its shadow. Yeah, in the shadow of the Earth. Again, this is why we've known that the Earth is round for thousands of years, because people have been making those observations for a long time. This is not a new idea. And then you talked a little bit about things moving farther away and kind of going past the curve. The best example of that is ships on the ocean, because the ocean is flat, and I put that in quotes, in that you don't have hills and valleys and things as long as you don't have a storm with really big waves. And when you watch a ship go away, if it was flat, it would get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until you couldn't see it anymore, including through a telescope. But what happens is you start to lose the bottom of the ship, and then you lose the middle of the ship, and then you lose the top of the ship. That is only explained if there's actual curvature.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm picturing in the sunset too. But if you believe different things about the sun, then it's hard to have that same thing. But like ships are like a thing that is here on Earth.
Yep. Now, the tricky thing is we say, well, this is all great evidence, so why would flat earthers still believe anything? They can explain away every single thing that I just told you. But they do so by using a method that I refer to. I don't know that anyone else has done this. I didn't make up this idea, but I haven't heard anyone coin this phrase. They invoke the conspiracy. The great part about a conspiracy theory is anytime you have evidence contrary to what you believe, you can just blame a part of the conspiracy to explain away the evidence you don't like. For example, you use the example of going into space, and people have been to space and they've taken pictures and we've seen it. Well, who's done that? Well, that's been NASA. NASA's part of the government. The government is part of the conspiracy. Obviously, it can't be true because NASA is part of the conspiracy. They doctored it. They doctored the photos. They did Photoshop. They did it in a studio, whatever those things are. You can just explain it away as a part of the conspiracy.
What about the ship?
The ship, what they say is, it's refraction. It has to do with the way light bends. And when water above water, then when it's being heated by the sun, it actually changes the way that the light goes, and it bends the light so it looks like it's curving when it's not really. And yes, light can bend and does bend when it goes through different things, but not to that amount. And you can actually do calculations to show that. But they are like, no, I see it with my eyes. I know that that's the case. Yeah.
Interesting. I like that phrase though. To invoke the conspiracy.
Invoke the conspiracy. And that is a great kind of red flag's not the right word, a telltale sign that someone or something that is being described is actually a conspiracy theory, is because if any time you have any sort of objection, they can very easily explain that thing away due to some part of the conspiracy. Well, we can't believe that because that came from so-and-so and so-and-so, obviously, blah, blah, blah. And not that you can never do something like that, because sometimes there are unreliable people and you can say, well, so-and-so said that, so it's not reliable. But if that is a common refrain for any sort of rational, reasonable evidence, or if there's some sort of evidence that's presented and they're like, well, it can't be that because I know this other thing is true. Always, those are some telltale signs. If you want to see some really good examples, and if you want to see and understand flat Earth from the perspective of a flat earther, I have two really strong recommendations for you.
Yes, please.
One is actually a recommendation that you made to me, which is, and we've also referenced before, the Ono, Ross, and Carey podcast. They do a series on flat Earth where they actually interview flat earthers. They go to flat Earth meetings. They have one of the flat earthers on and they interview him and ask him questions and have him explain his perspective and all of those sorts of things. It's really well done. So that's one. And then another, which actually kind of coincides with that, because while they were doing that investigation, there was a documentary that was being made. I believe it was originally made by Netflix, although last I checked, it wasn't on Netflix. It's called Behind the Curve. It's really good. It's really well done. One of the things that I appreciate about the documentary is it's not narrated at all. Everything that is said by those who truly believe the things that they're saying on both sides of the issue. And sort of your main character is one of the sort of main proponents of flat Earth. So you get to hear a lot of the understanding of what is flat Earth, why do they believe what they believe, from someone who believes it, as opposed to, like right now, you and I are talking about flat Earth, but neither of us believe flat Earth is true. And if you can only represent something that you don't believe in only so well, because you see the flaws and you see the things that you don't agree with. Whereas when you hear it from someone who truly believes it, you get a better, deeper understanding. It is so fascinating. It is so well done. I strongly recommend it. Again, I don't know where it's streaming right now. Last I saw, you could rent it on Amazon. It wasn't part of Amazon Prime, but you could rent it there. I'm sure there's other ways that you can view it, but I would strongly recommend it. Very entertaining, very well done, and gives you a great understanding both of flat Earth, but also they run some experiments with the flat earthers, and watching their response to the results of the experiments are also very telling.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah. You know, Cheryl, I should probably clarify, just in case there's people who have been annoyed as we've been talking. I keep talking about the Earth is round. Technically, the Earth is not round. It's not a sphere. It's an oblate spheroid. So there, now I've said it. Everyone can feel better.
Oh, good. We're all going to sleep real well at night tonight.
Yep. I knew you were concerned about that, so I wanted to make sure that I clarified that for you.
Okay, I will continue having a podcast with you then.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Well, since we are still doing a podcast, I think it's time that you took a quiz.
Well, that's what they want you to think, Ryan. But the fact is, you are a teacher who works for a public school, which means you work for the government. So that's what the government wants us to do, is to take quizzes.
Yep. This is all true so far.
Yeah, and from there, I am generally a law-abiding citizen, so
So you're going to take the quiz.
quiz.
Okay. Alrighty. Who was Eratosthenes and what did he do?
He was a Greek guy,
Uh-huh.
and he's very impressive to me.
Okay.
Because he was thinking about shadows on wells
Mm-hmm.
and how that has anything to do with the size of this planet. Is like, he was really a thinker, and I'm very impressed by him. And he had his buddy go somewhere else, and then they had to like sync their watches or something, but they didn't have watches. And measure things, and somehow those shadows ended up being the measurement of the circumference of the earth, and that is so impressive.
Yep. The shadows and also the distance between the two locations.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool, huh?
Yeah. That's really cool.
Very cool. All right. What about Galileo? What did Galileo contribute to our understanding of the round earth?
Well, other than making the Leaning Tower of Pisa lean, because our Earth is round, he used a telescope. That word escaped me for just a second. Time for bed.
Yes, telescope.
He used a telescope to look up into the sky instead of, I don't know what people are looking at, like for ships on the horizon. What were they using telescopes for? If not,
I don't know.
To look at stars. It's way more interesting.
Probably for navigating on the seas.
Okay,
probably.
I guess that matters since they didn't have.
Think of like Pirates of the Caribbean, the movies, right?
Oh,
they pull out that
Land
scope
ho!
thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
Right.
probably it. Clearly, I'm a historian and know all of these things so well.
Absolutely, yeah, me too. So then he like finagled one to look up, and he saw Saturn's rings. He saw moons going around Jupiter, I think you told me.
Yep.
And so that led to the thinking of, we're not at the center of the universe. Imagine that. Because something else is going around something else that's not us, which means it's possible for other things to go around things that are not us.
Yep. And it goes around it. Yeah, he did do stuff with gravity too. That was the leaning tower stuff, plus other things. Yeah, great. How do lunar eclipses show us that the Earth is round?
It's so cool that we can see our shadow. Yeah, that's the one time ever that we get to see our own shadow, right? I mean, other than like, I can see my shadow, but we can see our planet's shadow.
The planet shadow.
Other times. It's the one opportunity we have. And it's not a flat line or like a corner, but it's curved.
Yeah. Great. Give an example of invoking the conspiracy.
This phrase needs to catch on, by the way. I'm a big fan of it. To just use the conspiracy to explain the conspiracy, or to explain things that go against the conspiracies, use more of the conspiracy, and just use it as this large umbrella statement that somehow all goes back to, you can't really believe anybody. And so then any evidence that points to facts can fall under that umbrella of, yeah, but someone else told you that. And so somehow or another that's related to, that's what they want you to think. And it's
Can you think of an example?
Sure can. I definitely can come up with an example here. I don't want to use your example in your lesson because it feels like cheating. I know you probably do not think so, but I do think so.
Okay.
Or it feels less
so you
fun.
want to go up with your own.
But then I have to come up with my own, is the problem with that. So when they pretended to land on the moon, that was on a soundstage. And so you could say, well, the example then would be, what about the moon landing? People went up in a spaceship and landed on the moon.
We have pictures. We have video.
Yes, they saw Earth from the moon.
Mm-hmm.
So we have like evidence that those people like could testify that, and there's
Yep.
footage of all those things. But if it's, well, they were sent up there by the government, that was filmed, but like so are movies. So you could have filmed that anywhere, and you can make photographs look like anything you want. And so then it just kind of negates any of that evidence by saying it doesn't count because it was somebody else doing it and it was related to the government.
Yep. Yeah, great example. It's almost like maybe you know how to invoke the conspiracy, Cheryl. Are you a part of the conspiracy? Are you?
I don't think I want to control people that much. So no.
That's what someone who's part of the conspiracy would say.
Ooh, good point.
You just proved that you are part of the conspiracy by saying that you're not part of the conspiracy.
Yep. It's like the Salem witch trials.
It is actually, in a lot of ways. It has a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Yep. Completely. And on that super happy note, we're going to end our lesson. So why don't you pack up your stuff and get ready for my closing remarks. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at I Slept Through Science, or on Twitter at Slept Science.
If you have dumb science questions like I do, please send them to us. You can email us at isleptthroughscience@gmail.com, or you can even send us a voice memo and we'll play it on the podcast.
Please rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it, subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode, and share about our podcast on social media.
Thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. Okay, great. Thanks. Bye.
The bell doesn't dismiss you. I dismiss you.